Chapter 1: Ghosts on Stage. The teleprompter glowed with bad news, same as it had for 3 years running. Another member of the city's drag community has been reported missing, Taylor said, his voice carrying that particular blend of concern and professionalism that made viewers trust him. 26-year-old Jasper Leclerc was last seen leaving the Monarch Theater following his performance last Thursday night. Police are asking anyone with information to... He finished the segment on autopilot. Camera 2, empathetic pause, camera 1. The producer's voice crackled in his earpiece. Clean read, Taylor, you're clear. The studio lights dimmed. Taylor pulled out his IFB, the sounds of the newsroom flooding back. Keyboards clacking, phones ringing, the weather team arguing about storm systems. 4 deaths and 3 missing drag queens in 3 years. Lives that simply vanished like smoke, leaving behind sequins and questions nobody seemed interested in answering. Nobody except him. 6 hours later, Rita Book owned the stage at Velvet Underground like she'd been born under hot lights. The bass thrummed through Taylor's chest, his chest, Rita's body, as he hit the final pose. Applause erupted. The crowd at Velvet was small on Thursdays, but they were his people. They screamed like he just won a war. "Thank you, darlings." Rita's voice was bigger than Taylor's, bolder, and took up more space in the world. "You're too kind. My therapist says I shouldn't need this much validation, but she also charges $200 an hour, so what does she know?" Laughter rippled through the club. Rita blew a kiss, turned on her heel, 6-inch platforms steady as bedrock, and sashayed off stage. The dressing room was cramped and smelled like hairspray and ambition. Mira was already waiting, makeup kit open like a taco box. "You were distracted tonight," she said, not looking up from organizing brushes. Taylor dropped into the chair, suddenly exhausted. Was it that obvious? Only to someone who's been gluing your lashes on for 3 years. Mira handed him a makeup wipe. "What's wrong?" He started wiping away Rita's face, foundation first, then the contour that carved out cheekbones Taylor didn't naturally possess. "I saw someone in the crowd. For a second, I thought it was Shayla." Mira's hands stilled. "Tay." "I know." He scrubbed harder at the crimson lipstick. "But it's been 18 months, and sometimes I forget she's gone, and then I remember, and it's like losing her all over again," Mira said softly. Taylor stared at his reflection in the mirror, half Rita, half Taylor, caught between 2 people who weren't supposed to exist in the same breath. His phone buzzed on the counter, a notification from his research folder, the one he'd labeled Elite Noir. His stomach dropped. "What?" Mira leaned over his shoulder, reading the screen. "Oh, hell." The research team's file confirmed what Taylor had already feared. Jasper Leclerc, aka May, the latest missing queen, had performed at an Elite Noir event 5 weeks before he disappeared. Just like the others. Taylor's hands were shaking as he scrolled through his own photos, looking for something he'd buried in his camera roll 2 years ago. There, a selfie from a gig he barely remembered. Rita and Shayla squeezed together backstage, both of them in full face, grinning like they owned the world. The caption read, "Elite Noir VIP inaugural event." "I was there," Taylor whispered. "Mira, I didn't." "Where?" But Mira was already looking at the photo, her expression shifting from confusion to horror. He remembered it now, too clearly. The opulence was suffocating. High-profile individuals moved through the space with practiced ease, politicians among them, slipping in and out of doors marked private access, doors that closed quickly and stayed closed. Conversations shifted when those doors opened, laughter resumed when they shut again. And the cameras. Not the obvious ones meant to be seen, but the kind you only noticed if you were trained to look for them. Lenses disguised as fixtures, angles too precise to be accidental, blind spots that weren't blind at all. He'd clocked them on instinct, the same way he always did, because catching what people try to hide is part of his day job. Shayla gripped his wrist hard enough to hurt and leaned in, her mouth brushing his ear. "This feels like we're auditioning for something we didn't agree to." They finished their set and didn't stay for the applause. Outside on a cold street corner, they split the envelope of cash under a flickering streetlight and made a pact. Never again. Never another Elite Noir event. 3 months later, Shayla took another booking, the obscene rate outweighing his warning. Then another. And then she disappeared. Taylor, Mira's voice cut through the spiral. You need to be careful. Don't worry, he assured her. The investigation is progressing well and the community has been very helpful and eager for answers. His phone buzzed again. Not a research alert this time. An email. The subject line made his blood ice over. Second chances are rare. Don't waste this one. The sender, Elite Noir Events. The message contained a single attachment, a formal invitation addressed to Rita Book for an exclusive private performance this Saturday night. Mira grabbed the phone from his hand, read it, swore viciously, "You're not going." I wasn't planning to. But Taylor's thoughts were already accelerating, connections snapping into place, ones he should have made 18 months ago. They knew Rita had been there on opening night. They knew she was one of Shayla's closest friends, which meant they could suspect her. Not just as a witness, but as the informant, the source who'd fed the story to the station. And if they'd had eyes and ears in the community, quietly mapping who spoke to whom, they would have seen it. Rita asking questions after Shayla's death, pressing where she shouldn't have, refusing to let it go. This isn't a gig offer, Taylor said slowly. It's a test. Did they honestly think Rita would just show up, wave, and hop onto a silver platter? Absolutely not. Or a threat, Mira added. His journalist brain clicked into gear, cold, analytical. If I declined, it confirms I know something. If I accept, I walk straight into whatever swallowed Shayla and other queens whole. Either way, Rita Book was already a target, which meant if they wanted a bullseye, he'd make sure it exploded on contact. With glitter, with heels. They were about to get a show.
Chapter 2. The Threat. Taylor made it through Friday's morning broadcast on 4 hours of sleep and too much coffee. And in local news, community advocates are calling for increased police attention to the recent disappearances. He delivered the lines with his usual composure, but his hands were clenched beneath the desk where the cameras couldn't see. The red light blinked off. Taylor pulled his IFB and headed straight for his office, ignoring the producer trying to flag him down about Monday's rundown. The envelope was waiting on his keyboard. No return address. His name printed in block letters across the front. Taylor's pulse kicked up as he opened it. Inside, a single photograph, printed on glossy paper. The picture from his phone, Rita and Shayla backstage at the Elite Noir event. Except this version had been edited. Shayla's face was crossed out in thick red marker and scrawled across the bottom in the same red ink. Stop digging or join your friend. Jesus Christ, Taylor breathed. His office door opened without knocking. Patricia Vance, the network VP, strode in with the kind of purposeful energy that meant Taylor's day was about to get significantly worse. "We need to talk," she said, closing the door behind her. "If this is about the community disappearances segment, it's about the threat you received." Patricia dropped a folder on his desk. "IT flagged multiple emails since last week, traced it to a VPN, untraceable. And now this shows up at the station?" She gestured at the photo. "Taylor, this is serious." "I'm aware." "Are you?" Patricia studied him. "Because someone is nervous enough to threaten you directly. You're a good journalist, Taylor, but I'd also prefer you stayed alive." He picked up the photo. The red line through Shayla's face was careful, deliberate. Someone had taken time with this. "What are you proposing?" he asked. "Protection." Patricia checked her watch. "He'll be here in 20 minutes. "He?" "Dean Ashran, former detective, independent crisis consultant, protective detail for high-risk individuals." She raised her hand. "This isn't optional. You accept protection or I pull you from the story." Taylor's jaw tightened. "You can't do that." "I can, and I will. 4 people are dead. 3 are still missing. I won't let you be one of them." She paused at the door. "He's good. Let him do his job." Dean Ashran arrived exactly on time, which Taylor immediately found irritating. He was tall. Taylor had to look up slightly, which happened rarely and irritated him more than it should have. His presence crowded the doorway in a way that made the office feel smaller, controlled, intentional. Great, Taylor thought. Another man who knows he's distracting and enjoys it. Mr. Walters. His handshake was firm, professional, and lingered half a second longer than necessary. I've reviewed the threats. We need to discuss security protocols. When Dean released him, Taylor had the irrational urge to flex his fingers as if something had gone static. I'm a journalist, not a celebrity. I don't need a babysitter. You need someone who can stop you from being the next name on your own story. Dean's expression didn't change, but something sharp glinted in his eyes. I've read your work. You're good at making enemies, less good at keeping yourself alive while doing it. The corner of Taylor's mouth almost twitched before he caught himself. Don't, he warned himself, do not enjoy this. That's what makes good journalism and bad survival instincts. He pulled out a tablet, stylus poised. I'll need your daily routine, work schedule, regular locations, social commitments, any recurring appointments, or... Absolutely not, Taylor crossed his arms. I have sources to protect, confidential meetings. I'm not handing over my entire life to a stranger. Then you're making my job significantly harder. Good, maybe you'll quit. Dean studied him for a long moment, and Taylor got the uncomfortable sense of being assessed, not just as a problem to solve, but as a person whose habits could be mapped, predicted, exposed. It felt invasive. Worse, it felt intimate. I don't quit, Dean said. He set the tablet down. So this is how it works. I shadow you. I clear locations. I stop threats. You don't have to like me, but you do cooperate. How inspiring, Taylor said dryly. I'm not here to inspire you. I'm here to keep you breathing. Dean's gaze dropped to the photo. Who are they? One of the victims and another performer. Names. The victim's Shayla Cross, known as Taya. Taylor hesitated. And the person in the photo with her? Taylor's heart hammered. Rita Book, the victim's friends. Dean made a note. Do you have any relation with this Rita Book? It wasn't a question. Taylor met his eyes, dark gray, steady, too observant. Something tightened low in Taylor's chest. Not fear, not exactly. Interest, he realized with quiet annoyance. No, I don't. The lie tasted bitter. Dean's expression suggested he didn't believe it, but he didn't push. Instead, he examined the photo instead. They're not warning you. They're hunting someone. They think you know how to find her. He set it down. Do you have plans tonight? Taylor thought of the Rita show tomorrow night, the memorial performance for Shayla he'd been planning for weeks. The drag community was expecting him. Not tonight, he said. Tomorrow I have a personal meeting. Not happening. It's not up for debate. Dean stepped closer, not threatening, just immovable. Someone threatened your life. Either you come with me or you don't go. You're not my keeper. For as long as this takes, yes. His voice was steady. Protection fails when people stop cooperating. I don't intend to repeat that mistake. Taylor didn't like the way they sounded. Too close to a promise, too intimate for a man he'd met less than an hour ago. His first instinct was to push back harder. His second, to wonder what it would feel like to be someone Dean Ashran didn't give up on, to register, against his will, the quiet grief undercutting his voice. Fine, Taylor said, but you stay out of my way. I'll do my job, you do yours. Dean headed for the door, then paused. One more thing. They left the photo at the station, which means they may know where you live. You're not staying at your apartment. Absolutely not. Pack a bag or don't, but you're not going home tonight. Absolutely not. Pack a bag or don't, but you're not going home tonight. The door closed. Taylor sat heavily, staring at the photo. The red ink felt louder now.
I'm sorry, he thought. I should have known. His phone buzzed. Mira. Rita show tomorrow still happening? People are asking. Taylor. Yes, don't cancel. He couldn't cancel. Rita Book had spent months earning a level of trust neither the police nor the press ever managed. Going silent now would mean betraying it, even if it meant lying to the man assigned to keep him alive. Tomorrow night, Rita Book would take the stage, and Dean Ashran would have no idea where his client had gone. Chapter 3. Proximity Problem. The place Dean brought him to didn't look like a safe house, which was probably the point. It was a converted warehouse loft, exposed brick, high ceilings, minimal furniture, clean in a way that suggested no one stayed long enough to leave a mark. The windows faced an interior courtyard instead of the street, and the reinforced steel door had closed behind them Friday night with a final, echoing thud that still lingered in Taylor's chest. Dean had locked it, then checked it again. Taylor had slept badly on the industrial couch wrapped in a blanket that smelled faintly of detergent and nothing else. No familiar creaks, no city noise, just silence and the steady awareness that he wasn't alone. Saturday morning found him exactly where he'd woken up. Dean stood at the kitchen counter, already dressed, already alert, coffee brewing like part of a controlled routine. He moved through the space with quiet certainty, as if the loft belonged to him now. Get a grip, Taylor told himself. This is stress, not awareness. The thought didn't convince him. You're safe here, Dean said without turning around. He spoke like the matter was settled. Taylor watched him work, methodical, precise. Dean checked the windows again, tested the door lock, traced the perimeter with his gaze as if threats might materialize if left unacknowledged. He took up space without apology. Too much space. You didn't mention I'd be relocating indefinitely, Taylor said. Dean glanced at him. I mentioned safety. This feels less like safety and more like containment. That's because it is. Dean turned fully now. The loft seemed to shrink with the movement, the air warming in a way Taylor resented noticing. I'm not staying long, Taylor said. You are. I didn't agree to this. You agreed to protection, not imprisonment. Dean stepped closer, not aggressive, not threatening, just close enough that Taylor had to tilt his head to maintain eye contact, close enough to register the faint scent of coffee and something sharper beneath it, clean, controlled. This isn't punishment, Dean said evenly. You're not being confined. You're being preserved. I'm not a problem to be managed. No, you're a liability someone is actively trying to exploit. Taylor laughed once, sharp and humorless. You really know how to make a man feel valued. Something flickered across Dean's face, too quick to identify, then vanished. Before Taylor could push again, Dean's phone hit the counter with a soft, deliberate sound. They broke into your apartment, Dean said. Just like that. Taylor froze. What? Dean turned the screen toward him. Photos, his home office, the file cabinet beneath the desk, the lock scratched and bent at the edge, papers disturbed just enough to be noticeable, if you knew how they were supposed to sit. You're super cooperated with a security check. Entry was Friday night, lock was picked, clean work but rushed. The same day the invitation arrived. Taylor didn't finish the thought. Some conclusions were safer left untested. The coffee he'd already taken a sip of tasted like ash. What did they take? Dean's face didn't change. It's hard to say without you walking me through what should have been there. But they weren't browsing. They were looking for something specific. Taylor stared at the photos longer than necessary, as if the damage might undo itself. That's why you're not going back, Dean continued. Not today. Not until this is resolved. You already decided that, Taylor said quietly. Yes, because this isn't theoretical anymore. Silence settled between them, thick, unavoidable. Taylor set the mug down with care. His hands were steady only because he forced them to be. I have somewhere I need to be tonight, Taylor said. Dean's gaze sharpened. Can this be postponed? No, Taylor kept his tone level. I'm going. Everything's negotiable when someone's trying to kill you. Taylor met his stare. With or without you. Dean studied him for a long moment. What kind of meeting? Taylor's mind raced. He couldn't say Rita, couldn't explain the performance, the community, the promise he'd made to honor Shayla. Someone who might have information, he said carefully, about the investigation, a source. Not technically a lie. Dean didn't call him on it, but he didn't relax either. Then I'm coming with you. They won't talk if you're there. These people don't trust cops. I'm not a cop anymore. You look like one. You act like one. Taylor crossed his arms. I need to do this alone or I get nothing. Dean leaned closer, crowding the space with unnerving ease. Let me be clear, he said quietly. Someone threatened your life. They left a message where you work. They're close enough to know your patterns. His voice dropped. And I've held reckless people while they bled out, telling me they thought they had it under control. Taylor didn't interrupt. He wasn't sure he could without breaking something fragile between them. I'm sorry for whoever you lost, he murmured at last, but I'm not them. No, you're my responsibility now. His jaw tightened, not anger, resolve. We compromise, Dean continued. I take you, I stay outside, I maintain overwatch. You get your source, I get to sleep tonight in peace. Fine, Taylor said, but you stay outside, no exceptions. Agreed. Dean checked his watch. What time? 10. And where? Downtown, near the club district. Dean's gaze sharpened. Convenient. My source prefers familiar ground. I'll need the address an hour before. I'll scout the location. You really don't trust anyone. Trust gets people killed. Dean moved to the kitchen. I'm making breakfast. You should eat. Taylor sank back onto the couch, already calculating margins and timing, how to get into Velvet Underground without being seen, how to become Rita without leaving evidence behind. Tonight, Rita Book would take the stage, and Dean Ashern would be right outside the club, alert, vigilant, doing everything right. Taylor pictured it with unsettling clarity. Dean scanning entrances, tracking movement, trusting that the man he was protecting was exactly where he said he'd be. I really didn't deserve that trust. Clearly, I was an excellent case study in why he didn't give it freely. Because somewhere between the safe house and the lie he was about to live, Taylor had started to care what Dean thought of him. And that was the real problem. All he had to do was walk past Dean in 6-inch heels and a borrowed face, smile for the crowd, and pretend he wasn't already standing in the blast radius. How hard could it be? The answer was already warming up under stage lights. Applause, glitter, and absolutely no regard for his life expectancy.
Chapter 4. Close Call. Getting past Dean Ashern required precision, timing, and a healthy disregard for self-preservation. Taylor had texted Mira the plan at 8 p.m. Meet me at the coffee shop on 5th. Bring the emergency kit. We have 20 minutes. Dean drove them downtown at 9:40, Taylor's nerves tightening with every block. The club district glowed neon against the dark, bars and music venues packed shoulder to shoulder, crowds spilling onto the sidewalks. Velvet Underground sat in the middle of it all, its purple sign visible 3 blocks away. Too visible. Where exactly is this meeting? Dean asked, eyes scanning the street. Corner of 5th and Brennan, the coffee shop. Taylor kept his voice level. My source will text when they arrive. Dean pulled over 2 blocks away and killed the engine. I'll position across the street, he said. You see anything suspicious, anyone approaching who doesn't feel right, you signal me. How? Dean took Taylor's wrist and pressed the side of the security watch he'd fastened there earlier. Once, twice. His grip was firm. Too familiar. Double top. I'll be there in 15 seconds. His expression didn't soften. And Walters, don't try to lose me. I've tracked people through worse environments than this. Fantastic. I've been assigned a human bloodhound. Wouldn't dream of it, Taylor lied. The coffee shop was a cramped, perpetually overcrowded hipster joint with exactly one bathroom and a back exit that led into an alley. Mira was already waiting at a corner table, a large tote bag at her feet. "You're insane," she hissed as Taylor slid into the seat across from her. "That man looks like he eats nails for breakfast." "He's outside," Taylor said quietly. "We have maybe 15 minutes before he gets suspicious. Enough time to complete the performance and get back." In theory. In practice, this ends with me sprinting in heels. He grabbed the bag. "Did you bring everything?" "Wig, makeup, dress, shoes. The essentials." Mira's eyes stayed worried. "Tay, maybe you should sit this one out. If someone's threatening you." "Then they win." Taylor stood, bag in hand. "Shayla's gone, Jasper's missing, and Rita goes silent out of fear?" He shook his head. "That's exactly what they want." Mira exhaled sharply. "If he comes in—" "Cover the front," Taylor said. "Buy me time." The bathroom was barely big enough to turn around in, but Taylor had changed in worse conditions. He worked fast. Foundation, contour, eyes, lips. The emergency kit wasn't his full setup, but it would pass under stage lights. Rita doesn't need perfect. She needs loud, sparkly, and impossible to ignore. The wig went on next, pins secured and 30 seconds flat. The dress, black, sequined, short enough to move, slid over his frame like armor. 6-inch platform heels. A final glance in the mirror. Rita Book stared back. Sharp edges, defiance, no fear she hadn't already survived. Taylor cracked the door and checked the main room. Dean was still outside, visible through the front window, scanning the street with professional paranoia. "Good. Stay there and don't look this attractive doing your job." Mira caught his eye and nodded toward the back. Taylor slipped out the rear exit into the alley, heels clicking against wet pavement. 2 blocks to Velvet Underground. He kept his head down, moved with the crowd. Groups of clubgoers parted around him. Rita was known here, recognized, but no one stopped him. No time. He reached the club's back entrance at 9:58. Marcus, the bouncer, waved him through without question. "Cutting it close, Rita. Story of my life, darling." The voice came easier now, sliding into place like muscle memory. Backstage was chaos. Music thumped through the walls as the opening act finished their set. Rita's dressing room was barely a closet, but it was home. She touched up her makeup, adjusted the wig, breathed. 5 minutes. Rita stepped into the wings. The lights were blinding. The crowd a living thing of sound and heat. This was why she existed. This was the part of Taylor that couldn't be threatened into silence. "Ladies, gentlemen, and everyone in between, give it up for the one, the only, Rita Book." The crowd cheered loudly. Rita hit the stage like a lightning strike, bass heavy, defiant, every step precise, every gesture sharp. Halfway through the number, she scanned the crowd. Regulars, new faces, people drinking and laughing and alive. This wasn't just a show. It was an act of defiance, with better lighting. "This one's for my sister Shayla and for every queen we lost," Rita said into the mic, voice steady despite the burn in her chest. The crowd screamed approval. Someone in the front row was crying. Rita finished the number, took her bow, and got off stage before the emotion cracked through the performance. Backstage, she sagged against the wall, breathing hard. Then she moved. By 10:23, Taylor was back in the coffee shop bathroom, makeup wiped away, wig secured back into the bag. Glitter clung like betrayal. I will never forgive Sequins for this. The dress came off, jeans and jacket back on. He scrubbed at his face with wipes, knowing he'd never get it all. Rita faded reluctantly. Taylor returned. Dean stood exactly where Taylor had left him, leaning against a streetlight, arms crossed. His expression when he spotted Taylor was unreadable. "Your source didn't show," Dean said. "Yeah," Taylor forced frustration into his voice. "Texted a few minutes ago, got spooked, wants to reschedule." Dean studied him. "Too long. Don't rush. Don't flinch." "You smell like hairspray," Dean said. Taylor's heart stalled. "The coffee shop was packed," he said quickly. "Someone must have—" "And your jacket's inside out." Of all the ways to get caught, it would be for crimes to fashion. Taylor looked down. The tag was visible at the collar. I had to wash my shirt. Coffee spill. Dean said nothing, just watched him, cataloging, weighing. Then, let's get you back to the safe house. They walked to the car and silence heavy enough to bruise. Taylor could feel Dean's attention without looking, steady, unresolved, patient in a way that made him itch. As they pulled away from the curb, Taylor caught Velvet Underground's purple sign in the side mirror, and underneath it, a woman in an elegant coat, Vanessa Marquet, owner of Elite Noir Events, watching the club. Taylor's phone buzzed. Good choice. You performed beautifully tonight. We'll be in touch. Vanessa Marquet. His blood turned to ice. Something wrong? Dean asked, eyes still on the road. Just work, Taylor said. Monday's rundown. The lie tasted bitter this time. Dean didn't respond. His hands tightened on the steering wheel. And Taylor knew, with sinking certainty, that Dean Ashern didn't believe him. Not even a little.
Chapter 5. The Connection. Taylor didn't sleep that night. The safe house's industrial windows leaked city light. Street lamps, distant neon, the restless glow of a place that never fully darkened. He lay on the unfamiliar couch, staring at the ceiling, replaying the text from Vanessa over and over. You performed beautifully tonight. Fantastic, Taylor thought. Nothing like a glowing review from a potential murderer. At 3 a.m., Taylor gave up on sleep and opened his laptop. If he couldn't rest, he could at least work. Shayla's case file, 24 when she died, ruled an overdose, but the toxicology had bothered Taylor from the start. Shayla didn't even drink much. She'd been vocal about it, actually. Said she'd seen too many queens fall into that trap. Taylor snorted softly. Of course it was. The system loved tidy endings. Taylor shifted focus to the Elite Noir bookings. 3 events in the 2 months before Shayla's disappearance. The pay had been substantial, triple a normal club rate, enough to ignore red flags, enough to go back. He cross-referenced dates with news archives, society pages, permit records. A pattern emerged quickly. Every Elite Noir event coincided with political fundraisers or private cultural gatherings for high-profile donors. Senator Holbrook's name appeared near 2 of them. Dimitri Payne, the real estate developer, had been photographed leaving another. But the real pattern wasn't the guests, it was the performers. Taylor opened a new document and started mapping connections. Names down the left column, Elite Noir event dates across the top, attendee lists where he could find them. Taylor's laptop chimed, an email arriving at 6:17 a.m. From records@elitenoirevents.com. Subject, booking confirmation, Rita Book. Taylor's stomach dropped. He hadn't replied to the invitation, hadn't confirmed anything. But when he opened the email, it was all there. A formal booking confirmation for next Saturday night. Private residence, exclusive performance, fee paid in advance to an account he didn't recognize. Transportation will be arranged. Discretion is appreciated. A contract followed, already signed. The digital signature looked disturbingly close to his own handwriting. They'd booked Rita without her consent, built a paper trail that said she'd agreed, which meant if Rita didn't show, "You're up early." Taylor snapped the laptop shut, heart slamming against his ribs. Dean stood in the doorway, wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt that showed arms built for violence, not vanity. His hair was sleep-rumpled, but his eyes were alert, always alert. Couldn't sleep, thought I'd work. Dean moved into the kitchen and started making coffee, comfortable in the space in a way that reminded Taylor this wasn't his home. Probably never would be. Do you want to talk about last night? Dean asked. Nothing to talk about. Source got spooked. Right, the source. Dean pulled 2 mugs from the cabinet. The one that left you smelling like a nightclub and wearing your jacket inside out.
Taylor's pulse kicked. I told you. You told me a story. Dean slid a mug toward him. I'm not stupid and I'm not blind. You went somewhere you didn't want me to see. The question is, why? I'm protecting my source. I really needed him to stop being observant, preferably forever. Or you're protecting yourself. Dean leaned against the counter. I've done this job 8 years. Journalists, activists, witnesses, they all have secrets. That's fine. But when those secrets put them in danger, they become my problem. Taylor wrapped his hands around the mug, using the heat to ground himself. What do you want me to say? The truth. I can't. Taylor's voice cracked. He swallowed. I can't talk about this. Dean didn't raise his voice. Why not? Taylor looked away. Whatever you tell me stays with me, Dean said, firm now, professional, but I can't protect you without the truth. Taylor was tired of lying, not ashamed, never that, but exhausted from keeping his life divided, from pretending the fault lines didn't exist. He'd spent years holding those worlds apart, and now the universe and someone unhinged enough to exploit it was forcing them together. To hell with it. He took a breath, ready to tell Dean everything. The laptop chimed. Another email. Taylor opened it before he could stop himself. The screen was visible to Dean from where he stood. A photo, taken last night, Rita Book on stage at Velvet Underground mid-performance, the lighting dramatic and unmistakable. Caption, Saturday night, don't be late. And below it, a second photo, Mira leaving Velvet Underground's back exit, her face circled in red. Bring friends, lose friends, your choice. Taylor's vision tunneled. They'd been watching. They saw Mira. They knew she was connected to Rita. What's that? Dean was reading over his shoulder. Is that? He stopped, stared at the screen, at Rita Book frozen mid-performance in her black sequined dress and 6-inch heels. Dean's eyes moved from the laptop to Taylor, to the faint trace of makeup Taylor hadn't quite scrubbed away near his hairline, to the way Taylor's hands were shaking around the coffee mug. The silence stretched like broken glass. That's you, Dean said. Not a question, a statement of fact, quiet and certain. Dean's expression shifted, colder, sharper. Whoever sent this knows Taylor and Rita are the same person. He turned fully toward him. How long have you known? Since Friday, Taylor's voice barely carried. Elite Noor sent an invitation to Rita on my personal email that night. Dean swore under his breath and pulled out his phone, already typing. That's reckless, Taylor. We need to move now. If they're threatening your friend, they know your support network, and they'll use it. Mira. I'm already calling for backup. Someone will be at her place in 10 minutes. Dean looked up, and something in his eyes, worry maybe, fear, made Taylor's chest ache. But you need to tell me everything, right now. No more secrets. If I'm going to keep you alive, I need to know exactly what we're dealing with. Taylor's hands were still shaking. The coffee between them had gone cold. He told him everything. The event, the unease that made them leave early, Shayla going back alone, the questions Rita asked after she disappeared, and the quiet truth he hadn't said out loud until now, that neither Rita Book nor Taylor Walters could walk away without losing something he wasn't sure he'd survive losing. Dean was silent for a long moment. I won't let that happen, he said. You can't promise that. I can promise effort. Dean's jaw tightened. I won't lose you. He stepped closer, close enough that Taylor realized he'd never been this near without a desk or a car between them. It doesn't happen again, he said. Not if I can stop it. His gaze held, steady, intent. Rita Book doesn't die. Taylor Walters doesn't die. You get through this. Something in Taylor's chest cracked open. Relief, fear, something dangerously close to hope. Why do you care this much? He asked quietly. Dean's expression softened just a fraction. Because someone has to, and right now, that someone is me. Taylor's phone buzzed. Another message from Elite Noir. Saturday, 8 p.m. Perform well and your friend stays safe. Disappoint us and we'll make sure no one forgets Rita Book. Dean read it over Taylor's shoulder and swore. They're forcing your hand, he said. Show up and walk into a trap or refuse and they hurt your friend. Wow, Taylor thought. Blackmail. Efficient. Soulless. It's not a choice, Taylor said. I have to go. Then we go together, Dean's voice was steel, and we make damn sure you walk back out. Dean hesitated, just long enough to make it noticeable, then pulled Taylor into a brief, solid hug. It wasn't gentle, it was grounding, protective, the kind of contact that said, I've got you without asking permission. Taylor froze for half a second too long. Oh, we're doing this now? He returned the hug automatically, then became acutely aware of how close they were, chest to chest, Dean's breath warm near his ear. Dean stepped back just as quickly, clearing his throat. Sorry. It's fine, Taylor said, a second later. I don't usually get hugged before breakfast, but I'll survive.
Chapter 6. Wounds and Walls. Dean moved fast once he decided to move. Taylor experienced it as a blur, low voices through thin walls, the soft click of locks being checked, unfamiliar footsteps moving through the safe house with quiet efficiency. His phone buzzed and stopped. Buzzed again. Somewhere between exhaustion and adrenaline, he lost track of time. This is what panic looks like when it's efficient, he thought. By the time morning fully settled in through the industrial windows, Mira had protection. The safe house had been swept clean, and Dean was setting a plate in front of him like this was all perfectly normal. Eat, Dean said. We're not making decisions on an empty stomach. Taylor stared at the eggs without appetite. Saturday's 5 days away. Which gives us time to plan, Dean replied, spreading printouts across the counter. You're not walking into that event blind. They'll be watching. If Rita changes her routine, she won't. Dean didn't hesitate. Normal schedule, Thursday show at Velvet. But I need to see the venue, understand the exits, where you're exposed. You want to come to a drag show. I want to understand the environment where someone's been tracking you. Taylor exhaled. You're going to stand out. I've done undercover work. In heels? Dean considered that seriously. How hard can it be? Famous last words. Still, that was a sight he'd pay to see. Taylor almost laughed. Almost. The humor died when his phone buzzed. Mira, your cop friend's friend just showed up, built like a tank. Says you sent him. This legit? Taylor, yes, please stay with him. Don't go anywhere alone. Mira, Tay, this is serious. Taylor, I know. Just trust me. 3 dots blinked, disappeared, returned. Mira, okay, but you owe me everything. Taylor set the phone down. She's secure, Dean said, watching him closely. Marcus is solid. You trust him? With my life, Dean glanced at him. Taylor felt suddenly unsteady, the certainty of it sharpening his awareness of how close danger really was. Tuesday evening proved that instinct right. Taylor left the station at his usual time, briefcase in hand, nodding to the night crew like nothing had changed. 2 blocks from the garage, he saw the sedan. Black, tinted windows, same distance, same presence as that morning. Dean, he said into the earbud. I see it, Dean replied calmly. Keep walking. Dean peeled off to draw them away. They didn't follow him. They came straight for Taylor. Run, garage now. Taylor ran. The sound of an engine surged behind him, too fast, too close. His keys were in his hand. His car was right there. Not going to make it. Headlights flared, metal screamed. Dean's car slammed into the sedan, spinning it into a concrete pillar. Get in,
Dean ordered, already maneuvering the dented vehicle. Now. Taylor quickly got in and couldn't stop checking in the mirror for the sight of another sedan. Taylor's hands wouldn't stop shaking. The world felt too bright, too ordinary for what had almost happened. Dean stepped closer and set a steady hand at Taylor's elbow, firm, reassuring, unmistakably real. "Breathe," he said quietly. Taylor did, mostly because Dean told him to. "Great," his brain supplied. "Apparently, I respond well to authority." The shaking eased just a little. Dean didn't let go right away. Didn't crowd him either. Just stayed there, anchoring him in place like he wasn't about to disappear. "They tried to kill me," Taylor said finally. The audacity of it made his stomach turn. Wednesday morning, Taylor awoke to the smell of coffee and the sound of Dean on the phone, voice clipped and controlled in a way that suggested sleep had been optional. Plates trace back to his shell company, same network as Elite Noir's corporate structure. "I need financials, board members, direct ties." Dean noticed Taylor in the doorway and cut the call short. "I'll call you back." He handed Taylor a mug of coffee, exactly how he took it somehow. "The sedan?" Taylor asked. "Fake company," Dean said, pulling up a file. "Shares an address with multiple entities tied to Vanessa Mark. Elite Noir is just the front. She's running infrastructure, transport, security, finances, at least 6 layers deep." Taylor scanned the web of connections. "Money laundering." "And more," Dean said. "I've looped in a federal contact, but investigations take time." His jaw tightened. "Saturday's too close." "Then we focus on what we can control." Taylor set his mug down and pulled up a chair. "You said you wanted to understand drag. Let's start there." Dean grabbed a notepad, pen ready like this was a tactical briefing. The image, this armed, hyper-focused man preparing to take notes on drag, almost made Taylor laugh. "What?" Dean asked. "Nothing. You're just very committed." "People are trying to kill you," Dean said evenly. "I'm committed to stopping that. Go on." Taylor walked him through it. Styles, spaces, unspoken rules, chosen names, the way the community protected its own when no one else did. Dean listened closely, asking sharp, thoughtful questions. "So when Rita performs, she's not just entertainment. She's identity, community, a statement." "Yes." Taylor hesitated, then added, "Rita is who I am when I don't have to apologize for existing." "And Taylor?" "The version people take seriously," he said. "Professional, contained, easy to digest." Dean studied him for a moment. "For what it's worth," he said quietly, "I don't need to feel safe around you, either version." Taylor's chest tightened. "Why not?" "Because I've seen real danger," Dean said. "People who kill without hesitation." His voice softened. "You're just someone trying to survive in a world that wants to box you in. That's not dangerous. That's human." Thursday arrived whether they were ready or not. Rita emerged in leather and silver, heels steady, posture unapologetic. "You're different," Dean said quietly. "It's not just the clothes and makeup. Everything about you changes." "That's the point." Rita's voice was lower than Taylor's, more resonant. "Taylor is careful. Rita isn't." "I'm starting to see that." Dean checked his watch. "We should go. I want to sweep the venue before doors open." They took separate cars, Dean going ahead to scout, Taylor following 20 minutes later with Mira, who'd insisted on doing final makeup touches in the car. "Your bodyguard is hot," Mira said, blending Rita's contour. "In a deeply terrifying way." Rita stopped. What was Dean exactly? Protector, ally, someone who'd seen both sides of her and hadn't flinched. "He's something," Mira finished, knowingly. "And the way he looks at you, both yous, honey, that man is invested. He's doing his job." "Uh-huh. Keep telling yourself that." Mira capped the makeup, sat back. "You're gorgeous. Now go have fun."
Chapter 7. Infiltration.
Friday morning arrived with a plan Dean called controlled exposure and Taylor called suicide with extra steps. "You walk in as Rita," Dean said, spreading blueprints across the kitchen counter. Of course he had blueprints. Taylor had barely remembered to eat breakfast, and Dean was planning an architectural invasion. "You perform. You're wired for audio and video. I'm positioned with a tactical team within 60 seconds. A tactical team? Taylor stared at the papers. You can't storm a private residence based on a hunch. It's not a hunch, Dean said calmly. Deaths and missing people, credible threats, active surveillance, an organization with the kind of resources that made people disappear. He traced the layout. Penthouse, 32nd floor, 2 elevators, 1 service entrance, rooftop access. Taylor nodded like this was all very normal information to receive before noon. You've been busy, he said. I didn't sleep much. Dean pulled up photos on his laptop, lobby cameras, parking access, security choke points. The event's tomorrow night. We have 36 hours. Tell me how these performances usually work. You arrive through the service entrance, Taylor said. Someone escorts you to a prep room, usually a bedroom or office. You get about 30 minutes before call time. Phones? They ask you to leave everything in the prep room, security purposes. Taylor's stomach tightened. Shayla said it always felt like they didn't want documentation. Dean nodded. Then we assume they'll confiscate your phone. The wire has to be undetectable. He opened a small case revealing equipment that looked far more expensive than Taylor's car. Microtransmitter, costume seam or bra, 300-foot range. And if they find it? Then I move fast. Dean's jaw set, but they won't. They think Rita's scared, compliant. We use that. Taylor turned the device over in his palm. Tiny, innocuous. A very small piece of hardware to stake his life on. So what's the play? I perform and hope they confess to murder on a hot mic? No, you perform, you listen, and you survive. We're mapping the operation, who's there, how it works, get their camera feeds, and what they're protecting. Dean met his gaze. If anything goes wrong, I'll pull you out. You make it sound simple. It's dangerous, Dean said, and I hate it. But they've escalated. If we don't move first, they will. Taylor set the transmitter down and studied the blueprints, the trap he'd walk into in less than a few hours. What about Mira? Secure with Marcus. I'm moving her tomorrow, off-grid. Dean's voice softened. She'll be safe. Don't promise what you can't control. Then I'll promise this. If they hurt you, I will burn their operation to the ground. Every asset, every connection. The certainty should have frightened him. Instead, it steadied something in Taylor's chest. Okay, he said, let's do this. Saturday arrived too fast. Taylor spent the morning pretending to be normal, filing stories, answering emails, while his hands shook anyway. Twice he stepped away from his desk just to breathe. At 4, Dean arrived at the safe house with the gear. Let's get you wired. Taylor had already started Rita's transformation, base makeup done, hair pinned back. He stood in front of Dean, acutely aware of the vulnerability. Not the wire itself, but the intimacy of letting someone prepare him for danger. He'd done stranger things in costume, but usually they didn't involve potential homicide. This goes here. Dean's hands were careful as he secured the transmitter inside the costume seam. His fingers brushed Taylor's skin, light and fleeting. A shiver ran through Taylor before he could reason it away. Can you feel it? No. Good. Dean stepped back and checked the receiver. Test it. Rita's voice emerged, instead, lower, smoother. How's this, darling? Dean looked up, and for half a second, Taylor watched whatever professional category he'd been filed under quietly collapse. Oh. Taylor filed that under dangerous distractions he absolutely did not have time for. Clear, Dean said, recovering quickly. If you feel unsafe, say, I need air. That's extraction. Subtle. Nothing suspicious about a drag queen in tight dress dramatically requesting oxygen. I need air, Taylor repeated. And if you can't speak, knock twice on something solid, Dean demonstrated. I'll hear it. Assuming, of course, that whatever room they lock him in came with cooperative furniture.
"You keep repeating that you'll come for me," Taylor said quietly. "Is that for my sake or yours?" "Both." Dean's voice was steady. He met Taylor's eyes. "I don't plan on losing you tonight." Taylor's heart did something deeply unhelpful. Too much, he thought. Entirely too much. "Understood," Taylor said, because there was no other option. The wig went on. Final touches. The costume, a deep red dress that caught the light like blood. Heels that made him tall enough to meet Dean's gaze without tilting his head. Rita Book stared back from the mirror. Well, Taylor thought, this is either career-defining journalism or a posthumous cautionary tale. "You look—" Dean stopped himself. Then, quieter, "You look deadly." "Good," Rita said, adjusting the wig, "because I'm done being scared." The car arrived at 7:45 outside his old apartment. Black sedan, tinted windows. Rita climbed into the back seat, pulse hammering. 17 minutes later, the Meridian Tower rose into the night. Glass, steel, money. The car descended into the garage, then up the service elevator. A woman waited in the hallway. Elegant, professional, dangerous. "Ms. Book," she said, "I'm Vanessa Marquet." Rita smiled. "Showtime. Don't stab the murder suspect with your heel." "Lovely to meet you." "You're being performing shortly," Vanessa said. "You look exquisite." They stopped at a prep room marked with Rita's name. Vanity, sofa, impersonal luxury, like a hotel room designed by people who thought souls were optional. 40 minutes, Vanessa said. "Personal items stay here. Security purposes, I'm sure you understand." Rita placed her clutch on the vanity, phone inside. "Of course." Vanessa lingered. "You're different than I expected. Shayla spoke highly of you." Rita kept her smile steady. "I didn't realize Elite Noir kept such close track of its performers." "I knew them all," Vanessa said. "She was talented, such a loss." The words carried weight. Threat. Or confession. Or both. "I'll see you soon." The door closed. Rita whispered toward the hidden transmitter. "I'm in." Vanessa confirmed she knew Shayla. "Copy," Dean said softly in her ear. "You're doing great." Rita moved through the room under the pretense of preparation. Drawers, closet, corners, searching for anything Shayla might have left behind. Nothing. Then the bathroom. Scratched into the paint behind the door, faint but deliberate. Help. SC. The world narrowed. Rita traced the letters with shaking fingers. For once, Taylor had nothing clever to say. "Dean," she whispered, "she was here." "Document if you can. Stay sharp." A knock. "Ms. Duck, it's time." Rita straightened. Red dress, perfect makeup, armor in place. Security escorted her into the penthouse. Floor-to-ceiling windows, politicians, donors, cameras everywhere. She stepped onto the platform, took the microphone. Vanessa addressed the room. "Please welcome Rita Book." Applause. Predatory smiles. Rita breathed in. She wasn't performing for them. She was hunting them. "Good evening, darlings. I hope you're ready for a show you won't forget." The music started, and somewhere in the room were the cameras that would finally bring Shayla justice.
Chapter 8. Extraction and Explosion. Rita performed for 12 minutes before everything went wrong. The set was going well. The crowd engaged, cameras recording, Dean's voice occasionally murmuring updates through the hidden earpiece. Rita moved through the choreography while cataloging everything. Faces, exits, security posted at each door. Senator Holbrook lingered near the bar, whiskey in hand, looking bored. Dimitri Kane was on his phone, barely paying attention. Others watched with a focus that made Rita's skin crawl, evaluating, calculating, deciding if she was useful. Vanessa stood near the back, expression unreadable. Rita finished a song and slid into banter. "You're a lovely audience, very attentive. Though I have to say, this is the most overdressed crowd I've ever performed for. Are we at a fundraiser, or did someone tell you there'd be a photo op?" Scattered laughter. Holbrook's expression shifted. Annoyance, or the realization that Rita wasn't the compliant entertainment they'd expected. "One more for you," Rita said, launching into the final number. That's when Holbrook moved. He crossed to Vanessa and murmured something Rita couldn't hear. Vanessa's expression sharpened. She pulled out her phone, typing quickly. Dean's voice cut in. "Activity at the south entrance. 2 more vehicles. Heavy security. Something's changed." Rita's pulse spiked. She kept performing, but her focus fractured. Vanessa, the exits, the distance to cover if she had to run. The music ended. Applause followed. Polite, measured. As Rita stepped down, Vanessa approached. "That was lovely, but we need to talk. In private." "Fantastic. Nothing says impending death like a private conversation." "I should collect my things." "Your things are fine where they are." Vanessa's hand closed around Rita's elbow. Gentle, but firm. "This way." Security closed in. Not threatening, just present. Blocking retreat. Dean's voice. "Walters, what's happening?" Rita couldn't answer, not with Vanessa so close. So this is the end. In red sequins, 6-inch platforms, at least I look incredible. They moved down a hallway Rita hadn't seen before. The noise of the party faded, leaving just Vanessa and 2 guards built like they enjoyed hurting people. "You're very talented," Vanessa said. Shyla was talented too. Presence, charisma, just like you. Rita swallowed. "Thank you." She's comparing me to a woman she murdered. Love that for me. "But she got curious," Vanessa continued, "about things that didn't concern her." She opened the door to a sleek office. "I'd hate to see you make the same mistake." They wanted her inside, away from witnesses, away from cameras. Rita knocked twice against the doorframe. The signal. "I appreciate the concern," Rita said, stalling, "but people will notice if I disappear." "The journalist notices many things," Vanessa said. "Taylor Walters, investigating missing drag queens, who just happens to be Rita Book." She stepped closer. "So let's be efficient. Hand over the wire or we remove it, along with anything else that complicates matters." The guards moved in. One reached for Rita's shoulder. "Okay, this is happening." Dean's voice exploded in her ear. "Get down, now." Rita dropped. The window behind Vanessa blew out. Glass, noise, chaos. Dean came through on a rappel line, hit the floor, moving. "Step away from her," he said. Oh, thank God. The guards reached for weapons. Dean was faster. 2 sharp shots, both men down, screaming. But a third guard burst through the office door and grabbed Rita from behind, arm locking around her throat. Dean froze, weapon trained but unable to fire. "Drop it," the guard snarled, "or she dies." Dean's jaw went tight as his gun lowered a fraction. Think fast." Rita went limp, dead weight. The guard adjusted his grip. That second was enough. Rita yanked off her heel, 6 inches of steel-reinforced stiletto, and swung back hard. Crack! The guard dropped. Rita staggered forward, gasping, adrenaline turning everything sharp and unreal. Did I just knock a 200-pound man with a shoe? Shiloh would be proud. "Jesus Christ," Dean breathed. "Remove the other shoe, now." Rita kicked it off just as Vanessa lunged for a desk drawer. Dean caught her wrist, twisted, and sent her sprawling. "Don't." Vanessa glared up at Dean. "You have no idea what you've done." "Saved someone," Dean chimed, hauling Rita toward the window. "Can you climb?" Rita looked at the shattered glass, the rope, the drop beyond, her bare feet. "Not my skill set," she said, "but I'm motivated." "Good," Dean clipped her in the harness. "Hold on. I'm going to die of vertigo." They went out the window. Rita clung to Dean as they dropped to a maintenance balcony below. Wind tore at Rita's wig, her dress snagged on the harness, the city yawning beneath them. They hit the balcony running. An operative waved them on. "Vehicle ready, I'll cover." They ran, through service corridors, down stairwells, alarms screaming. Rita's bare feet slapped against concrete. This is how I die, Taylor thought distantly. Barefoot, full glam. They burst into the garage. Dean's car waited, engine already running. They dove inside, doors barely shut before Dean tore out of the space. Are you hurt? Dean demanded. Did they touch you? Define hurt, Rita said, breathless. Physically, bruised. Emotionally, I just weaponized footwear. Despite everything, Dean almost smiled. You knocked out a 200-pound man with a shoe? Christian Louboutin, Rita said faintly. Worth every penny. Remind me never to piss you off. Too late, Rita muttered. You made me rap hell. They drove in silence for several blocks, the adrenaline still buzzing under Taylor's skin. His hands started to shake once the danger was no longer immediate. Pull over, Taylor whispered. Dean did. The moment the engine died, Taylor cracked. He shoved the door open, leaned forward, gasping for air like his lungs had forgotten how to work. I'm sorry, he managed. I thought I could handle it. You did, Dean were there instantly, hands steady on Taylor's shoulders, grounding him. You signaled. You fought back. You survived. True, Taylor let out a weak, hysterical laugh. Barefoot, full glam. Dean didn't smile this time. It was brilliant. The laugh faded. Taylor swallowed. Shyla must have been terrified in there, and no one came. Dean's jaw tightened. We have enough now. Enough evidence for the FBI to move. Mira? Still secure. Taylor nodded, then looked at him. Thank you for everything. I know it's your job, but... The words tangled in his throat. His chest ached too much to finish the thought. We should go, Taylor said instead. Dean nodded, but his eyes lingered on Taylor a tad longer than necessary, like he was making sure he was really still here. Then he put the car back in gear, and they drove. Chapter 9. Breaking Free, Breaking News. The safe house felt different when they returned. Smaller, tighter, as if the walls had shifted while they were gone. Dean locked the deadbolts and checked the windows before finally exhaling. Taylor, still technically Rita, though the night was over, sat on the couch, blood-stained, one shoe clenched in his hand. Dean gently took it from him and set it aside. Go shower, he said. I'll make coffee. Coffee's fine. Taylor stood on unsteady legs. Don't go anywhere. I'm not going anywhere, Dean said. I promise. The mirror told the story plainly. Smeared makeup, crooked wig, the red dress torn and filthy. Taylor stripped, removed the wig, and washed Rita's face away with shaking hands. The shower ran hot. He stayed under it until the water stung and his breathing slowed. When he emerged 20 minutes later in sweatpants and a t-shirt Dean had left out, he felt more like himself again, less like debris. Dean stood at the counter, laptop open, phone to his ear. Recording's clean. Full confession. I'm sending it now. He saw Taylor and ended the call. He poured 2 coffees. The FBI's taking the case. They're moving on Elite Noir tonight. Financials, properties, everything. Vanessa Marquet and Senator Holbrook should be in custody by morning. Taylor wrapped his hands around the mug. And Shayla? Her case is being reopened as a homicide. Dean's voice softened. Her family will get answers. Taylor nodded once. What happens to me now? You stay here until arrests are made. After that, the threat drops. Dean leaned back against the counter. Then you get your life back. Both of them. Sounds good. Sounds distant. And you? Taylor asked. Dean was quiet. Is that what you want? He asked, finally. I don't know, Taylor exhaled. I want Shayla back. I want this week erased, and I don't know how much of this, he gestured vaguely between them, is just adrenaline. Maybe some of it is, Dean said. He stepped closer, careful not to touch. But somewhere along the way, you stopped being a client. Taylor swallowed. I know the timing's bad. You're processing trauma. I'm still technically working. His voice steadied. But when this is over, when you're safe, I'd like to see where this goes. If you want that. Taylor didn't hesitate. I do. I'm terrified, but I want it. Dean smiled, relief clear. Terrified I can work with. Taylor laughed, quiet, genuine. Dean's phone rang. He glanced at it, listened briefly, then nodded. It's done. Vanessa's in custody. Holbrook's next. Done. The word barely felt real. Dean turned away to coordinate the final details. Taylor caught his wrist. Stay, he said. Just for a minute. Dean hesitated, then nodded. Okay. They stood close, both marked by exhaustion and the residue of survival. Dean checked his watch. My contract ends after all this is wrapped. And after that, Dean met his eyes. After this, he said quietly, I'd like to take you to dinner. Somewhere boring, somewhere safe, and see if, he gestured lightly between them, this is real. I'd like that, Taylor replied. Dean's smile softened. Good. He hesitated, then added, almost shy, I'd really like to kiss you, but I am technically still responsible for your safety. Taylor smiled. Fantastic, Taylor thought. Nothing sexier than a man citing workplace ethics mid-confession. Then he kissed him. It wasn't careful. It was relief and want and the simple fact of still being alive. Dean kissed back like he'd been holding himself still for days. When they pulled apart, Dean rested his forehead against Taylor's. I was going to suggest hugging first. Later, Taylor laughed softly. Much later. Deal. They ended up on the couch, exhaustion finally winning. Taylor curled against Dean's side, the city lights glowing softly through the windows. Quiet. Harmless. For the first time in days, Taylor slept without fear. And somewhere in federal custody, Vanessa Marquet understood exactly how badly she'd miscalculated. Epilogue. 3 days later, Taylor Walters sat in the makeup chair at Studio 7, watching Mira transform him into Rita Book one last time before everything changed. You sure about this? Mira asked, applying foundation with practiced precision. Once you do this interview, there's no taking it back. I'm sure. Taylor's voice was steady. We all deserves the truth. All of it. And I'm done hiding. The network had offered him prime time, a special report where Taylor would break the full story of Elite Noir's blackmail operation, the murders, the arrests. And at the end, he'd reveal what the media had already started piecing together, that Taylor Walters and Rita Book were the same person. Dean leaned against the dressing room door, arms crossed, watching the transformation with the same focused attention he brought to everything. He'd been around constantly for the last 3 days, not as a bodyguard anymore, but as something else, something Taylor was still learning to name. How do I look? Rita asked, turning in the chair. Terrifying, in the best possible way. Rita stood, smoothed down the black suit she'd chosen, tailored, elegant, powerful, a compromise between Taylor's professional wardrobe and Rita's bold aesthetic. Hairstyled but not a full wig, makeup is dramatic but not stage level. This is it. This is who I actually am. Both of them, together. 5 minutes, the assistant director called through the door. Mira squeezed Rita's shoulder. Go make us proud. Rita took a breath, nodded, and walked toward the studio with Dean at her side. You don't have to watch. I know live television isn't exactly thrilling. Are you kidding? I've been waiting 3 days to see Rita Book on the evening news. Dean's smile was warm. Wouldn't miss it. They stopped at the studio entrance, as far as Dean could go without being visible on camera. Rita turned to face him, suddenly nervous in a way that she hadn't been facing down Vanessa Marquet. What if people hate me? The question escaped before Rita could stop it. What if they think I'm brave? Honest? Someone who risked everything for justice? Dean's hand found Rita's, squeezed gently. That's what they'll think, because that's what you are. You're biased. Completely. Dean leaned in, pressed a quick kiss to Rita's temple. Go tell your story. I'll be right here. If the world was going to meet me all at once, it might as well be under studio lighting, with a man I liked waiting off camera and no shoes sharp enough to double as weapons.